Hello, this is a recording of the information that was presented to the Christ Covenant Church community at the first town hall meeting held on May 13th, 2015. Those who presented were Christy Rigby, David Hebert, Brian Asa, all of Grace Hebert Architects, as well as Joseph Furr, landscape architect with Joseph Furr Design Studio. The two firms are approaching this as a joint venture master plan, both to take care of architectural and landscape architectural site issues. A little history of where we have been to date. A committee was established, and this committee is a diverse group of church members, and we've had multiple meetings, and we've established the following items. First of all, we have kind of determined what are the major existings with the buildings and the site. We've established master planning goals, and we've determined how these goals should address the existing issues. We've had several follow-up visioning sessions to discuss the potential opportunities and alternatives, or basically how the plan could be approached, what we might do with the site and buildings. And then we've established priorities so that the phasing addresses the immediate needs first. This is a presentation that was made at the first town hall style meeting to the church. We are also going to be submitting an online survey, and it will be available for all of those that were not able to attend. Everyone should be able to voice their opinions. And we also will be presenting two master plan options. The committee developed 5 major goals for the master plan. We'll go into the details of each goal in a minute, but it's important to realize that these are long-range goals. They are for the master plan, and these goals will require multiple phases. First goal is major renovation to the existing church. A larger narthex or entry area for fellowship, more efficient use of existing spaces, more natural light in the worship space, a multi-purpose room such as a bride's room or a groom's room or a family room, potential for small meetings, that type of thing, and then closer restrooms to the church. We felt like creating a better sense of presence, more visibility along Lee Drive, more clearly identifiable building and campus as a place of worship. Potentially a beacon feature or a steeple or something that gives more of a symbolic religious presence. And actually to have more perceptible activity or transparency. The ability for someone outside along Lee Drive to be able to see in and see activities of some of the ministries that are taking place, not just Sunday mornings, but also on a weeknight when a different type of ministry with the students or the young people or ladies groups or men's group may be happening on that side of the church. And then signage, not only entry signage, but also wayfinding signs around the campus. A larger space for fellowship, being able to have multi-purpose and multi-generational family activities. Reception hall with a closer proximity to the sanctuary, a place to host conferences, potentially attracting new members, and a template for growth from within as well as beyond. Improvement to the child care space, a renovation of the nursery, renovation of the existing playgrounds, and potentially trying to look at the locations of those and see if we can get them closer to the school and nursery for safety. Obviously, safety is a much priority when it comes to the child care space. And lastly, the desire to create multifunctional spaces in order to support the various ministries. Try to be more efficient with existing space in the church, possibly reconfigure some of the second floor space to offer more programs. The rooms are kind of too big, we feel, and they're not very efficient, so this should be function driven. Possibly a need for an elevator down the line as we develop those rooms. Library and books, need for that. Women's ministry setting, a very nice area for for the ladies, space for elementary Bible study, and the spaces should be flexible and multifunction. You've only got so much room on campus, so we want to make sure that we have multiple functions for the spaces, and then a handout room for high school and college students. As we look at the site, Lee Drive obviously is the major corridor along the front of the church, and then along the sides we have Sweetbriar and Palm Street, which are both two-way streets. You enter the church really from the parking lot from the back, and really an important question as you drive along Lee, and what the committee as well as the planning team looked at is really, where is the church? It's not patently obvious that this is a church building. You can see along Lee Drive there's a nice green corridor looking in both directions, but there's really no identifiable element that signifies that this is a place of worship. And as you start to look around the site on all sides, we still are not really sure where the church is. Is that building the sanctuary, or is the building on the end the sanctuary? The gymnasium actually looks more like a church than the actual sanctuary does. So we continue to ask this question. It's a little ambiguous as where is the church, or even is this a church? You do have a nice green space along Lee Drive, and that green space penetrates in between the two areas with the beautiful live oaks. There's a lot of potential there to develop some of this transparency we're talking about with potential activities and different ministries, fellowship that could take place outside, as well as being able to possibly look at creating some better transparency along these buildings. As you can see, the church on the gymnasium on the left looks a little bit more church-like than the actual sanctuary, so that's something we kind of identified. The other thing we identified, that this site clearly has kind of a good half and a bad half. The back with the parking and so forth, we'll talk about more, but there's a definite line or wall, so to speak, that separates the green side of the campus and really the buildings and the worship spaces as well as the educational spaces from the parking in the back. And again, you're not really sure where the church building is, so the entry is maybe somewhat ambiguous. This is kind of the major feature across the back, which is probably the least appealing, or definitely the least appealing part of the church from an architectural standpoint, but yet this is what you see once you come around the back. There is a porte cochere that goes into the school, but there's really no identifiable entry. There are these entries that happen, but we're not exactly sure when you come for the first time where the church is. You can kind of identify that this is a major entry to something, but there's no identifiable element that would make this read as a place of worship. Circulation is very hodgepodge and kind of ambiguous. You've got 2-lane traffic, 1-lane traffic. You've got a playground right in the middle. Not the most attractive parking, and a lot of the parking is in disrepair. Your dumpster is just sitting out on the back, so this is not the best foot you want to put forward. I think an important thing here from a safety standpoint is the playground, and the playground is in the middle of the parking lot. You can see here this lady has pulled in, and it must be right about time for recess because the flags are out so that they can safely get the children across to the parking lot. This is not a good situation, and it is something that we really want to address. That's even further made worse because the secondary playground is even farther across, so you're crossing 2 lanes of traffic. And this causes problems not only for safety but also management of the children in the day school, as well as children during church times or for church activities. Playgrounds are somewhat antiquated in terms of their equipment, probably some safety issues there, and they're not totally efficiently designed in terms of space. The large one is about 7,700 square feet, and the smaller one is about 3,900 square feet. So those spaces together are nice square footage, but you're not really using them well. two buildings in the back that are used for ministries that we need to work with, and then the one storage building that we're told is really underutilized and is somewhat in a bad spot, so we're looking at that as a potential. We talked a little bit about the green space and that being a beautiful area that needs to be emphasized, and I think there's from a landscape architectural standpoint, there's a tremendous amount of potential to develop a space here for gathering and fellowship and many different activities that can take place in the space under the oak trees, and that'll also help the edge in the front of the church, and it will start to show or increase that transparency. There's also wasted space here on the corner. We're looking at that as possibly a space to include some playground space. It's near the restricted access or controlled access from the day school. But it also would put a nice activity on the corner, but we obviously need to take care of safety with the traffic, fencing, and so forth. Small area that is, we believe, to be high potential for development is in between the hallway and the gymnasium and the central plant, but it's a very private area. We feel like we could make a very nice private meditation garden in that particular area, and so there's some potential there. So we've developed a couple of master plan options at this point that we're presenting. The ideas on these plans are result of the meetings that we've had with the committee, and they provide different options for the plan. The landscape portion of the plan renovates the parking lot. We've got two different parking scenarios that we'll present, but we try to get more green. We try to make better circulation opportunities, and we try to take care of some of the problems that we had with the playground. This puts the main playground, which is in this case, about 6,000 square feet, but more efficiently designed, puts it closer to the church so that there's controlled access and the parking is not, and the vehicular circulation is separated. Creates a space that would be outside of the church nursery and could be a much more functional space for play. We also looked at the other space, which is another 3,000 square feet for the tot lot. So this would be 1 year to 3 years, where the other one would be older children. Both of these could be utilized by the day school as well as the church. The larger one being closer to the sanctuary would be used more adequately during Sunday services for the nursery as well as after and before. The green space is really going to be developed, we feel like should be developed for outdoor fellowship. And it should be kid-friendly because the kids will be there after worship. But it also should be diverse so that there can be activities for other ministries during the week. Keep in mind that this space can be activated during weeknights and more than just on Sunday, and that transparency and that activity of the church will take place. The idea of a hearth, maybe an area where there's an outdoor fire area that you could have gatherings there that would extend the period of time during the cooler months where it could be used, but also potentially a covered area that where food could be served and those types of things in the hearth. The prayer garden is the activating the space that we feel like the back has been turned to it. There's a lot of potential there to have a very intimate prayer garden in that area. Parking summary, this plan is 137 total spaces with 16 on the street and 15 of those compact, but that's a manageable portion of compact. This is more spaces than you currently have in your existing lot by about 10, and we feel like it does a much better job in terms of circulation. Carpool, being able to come in, drop off, and leave the church without crossing a playground path, as well as having covered access for the school, as well as church drop-off, and then pedestrian access, greener spaces coming into the church, and being able to get to the church with a better transition. The transition from your car or the worldly to the spiritual is very important when we do church design. So that trip is where fellowship occurs, as well as in gathering after the church as you walk back and forth to your car. So these trips, these walking paths, need to be green and really have that type of quality instead of just a concrete parking lot. Both schemes develop a corridor through the existing building. We talked before about the wall that is created by the school, and there's no way to get from the back to the inner campus. So what we feel like, if we open up an open air corridor through the building, the campus will tend to tie together better. So that campus or that circulation would bring you in and then potentially into the church in various or the sanctuary in various spots. But also there is circulation across to the other portions, the other buildings and uses of the church campus. The school and the administration pretty much remains as is. The covered walkway that you walk through, and then through the new established corridor through would go through the school building. This puts the nursery in basically the same place, but renovates it. As you come in through the corridor, you would be able to drop off children there and then go into the church. It also creates an entry feature or a beacon at the center of the sanctuary, and this actually flips the layout of the sanctuary to make the narthex, or the entry, on the Lee Drive end of the church. So you would come through, you would walk under the covered walkway, you would have the gardens on one side, you'd have the renovated sanctuary on the other side, and come into this beacon feature, which would really be a beautiful, airy, open gathering area that would then go in. Then you would go into the church. Restrooms and the multi-purpose room would be on either side, and there'd be much transparency here, so you'd be able to see in and see the activity that's taking place in the church, as well as you would have that beacon, that signifying element along Lee Drive that we talked about. The sanctuary remains the same size. The number of seats that we're requiring, or the committee feels like is appropriate, is doable with the same footprint that you have. So that maintains the same. Just the altar would be changed to the other end, and basically the orientation of the church would be flipped, but the entry would be along Lee Drive in this particular scenario. Then in what is the existing entrance of the church in this scenario, we would have the parlor and a kind of an outdoor gathering area, back porch scenario that would overlook the playground. The parlor would be a smaller gathering area, maybe the place for the ladies' activities. It also could be where the bookshelves could be, and you could have the religious literature in those areas. But you also could be a place where you could have coffee, even during the week. Mothers and fathers could bring their kids to play in the playground, and they could sit on the back porch outside of the parlor. So the parlor becomes a very important multi-purpose gathering area, but it's not the main gathering area before and after church. And then the renovation of the gymnasium into the fellowship hall. There's kitchen facilities there already. It's a nice high room. It's a gymnasium right now, but I think with some interior renovations, we can very easily incorporate that into a very beautiful gathering hall that could still remain multi-purpose to be used, some for the day school. Also increasing the visibility or the transparency of that front edge would be an important thing to take care of in this particular scheme, or both schemes actually. Master plan option 2, parking lot is somewhat different, but we've got 144 spaces. But this is a little bit different because it pulls out the drop-off area from the church a little bit farther, and the number of cars you gain is about 6 or 7. But it does do some things in terms of the amount of green space you have in the parking lot. So the transition is not as probably not as nice, although it does provide more parking. You can see the circulation, vehicular circulation still works very well. You'd still have the covered drop-off, which is a positive, and the pedestrian circulation is still improved vastly from what you have today, but it's not quite as green a parking lot. But we've gained parking spaces for that. Again, the corridor through and the circulation into the church sanctuary building, as well as into the other parts of the campus, would be the same. And again, we are talking about the school area would remain the same in this particular scheme, as well as the meditation garden would be in the same place. In this space, the nursery remains the same. It's a little bit smaller because of some other use that we need for that particular space. The beacon feature in this would be a standalone, more of a sculptural piece that would be separate from the church. It would not be interior to the church. It would not be necessarily part of the interior functions of the building, but there could be exterior activities that could take place, under this element. But it's really kind of a large architectural feature that does signify that this is a church. It's a little bit more centrally located to the site, but it's not as central to the entrance to the church as the other scheme. This scheme does keep the orientation of the sanctuary the same. The northex or the entry area would be the lighter green space to the right, and that is expanded. We would pull into the sanctuary a little bit, and we could use some of the spaces that are currently not used as efficiently as they could in the actual sanctuary proper to get a big, larger narthex, and we would add restrooms in that particular area in the green there by the nursery. We still have the back porch scenario, which could be used as overflow after church, as well as during the week. It could still function the same way. There could still be coffee service or other types of multi-purpose activities there. The parlor, however, in this scenario has been moved to the front of the church, and would take the space that is currently choir robing space and other very much underutilized rooms, and create a really nice room there or a series of rooms, a couple of rooms that would function as the parlor. And again, that would be kind of a secondary or a smaller gathering area, smaller than the fellowship hall, but it would be a parlor space that would be multi-purpose. Again, in this scenario, the fellowship hall remains the same, and the things that we proposed in the first scheme would be similar or the same in this particular scenario. And then kind of a master plan option 2B would be to incorporate the architectural element into the front of the church in the same location as it would have been in scheme 1, but it would be part of the parlor space. So it would really be more of an architectural element that would create a kind of an entrance to that room. It could also drop natural light into the altar from the street from higher up, so that it can kind of vault that ceiling and really kind of make the altar area in the church read through or be a part of that atrium that would be created by that beacon space, in this case in the parlor. And that would change the back of the church, and again try to bring in some natural light as well as create that architectural significance along Lee Drive. So those are the two schemes. What is next is a follow-up town hall style meeting, and we will present the final master plan. We're going to get a lot of feedback from this, and we'll be working with the committee as well as the designers. We'll be working to design the master plan to meet what you guys have told us. So as the community gives us the comments, and we get the surveys back, and we get more information and more feedback, then we're able to do our job better to develop a plan that will be specifically created for Christ Covenant Church. Thank you very much.